When bullying becomes a problem, some families may ask, is homeschooling a better option? And I get it, when your kid isn't safe, nothing else matters. Today isn't about bashing schools, but it's about being real and helping families think through this decision. We'll get into it after I hit this music. Joining me this week is my good friend, Mr. James. He is an educator and founder of the homeschool program, IncludEDucation. Mr. James, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and just get a little backstory on you. How did you come up with IncludEDucation? And what is
Well,
it?
so it's not exactly a homeschool program, but we do facilitate homeschooling. And so I would say the bulk of our students are homeschoolers, and it just kind of naturally evolved that way. But to your original question, like, why did I start it? And that goes back to the experiences of my own children. I have three adult boys, and my oldest is on the spectrum, and my second one has ADHD. And their experiences in school with bullying and the way that was handled and stuff left a very bad taste in their mouth. They had no desire, like, let's just get through high school. And then they never wanted to see the inside of a classroom again because of it. So it really soured the whole educational experience. And I did not know about the alternatives. I didn't know about homeschooling or other than the myths that are out there. And we could probably
Yeah.
talk about some of those later too. But that's all I knew. And so really we didn't consider that an option. And then later, eventually just kind of falling into it by accident, thinking, okay, I'm going to go into the education system and make changes and realizing that wasn't going to happen from the inside the way I would, as much as gung ho as I was going to be running into obstacles. And so it ended up going into offering programs for those who were not doing traditional schooling. And now it's kind of grown and exploded from there. So basically now I look back and I'm like, I wish I knew then what I know now. And now I get to help others to get informed and realize there's alternatives.
So when you say facilitate, do you mean like, do parents come, they drop their kids off, they stay with their kids, or they drop their kids off and leave? Like, how does this whole thing work?
So a little bit of both. Sometimes we're, generally with, at least in this area, and I'm sure most areas, there's homeschool pods or groups that get together. And so what we do is we go to those groups, and usually it's, a campus type setting, whether it's, we have equal enrichment education, EEE centers, or there's homeschool enrichment centers, or, these locations where they operate a campus type of thing, usually at a
Okay.
church. And so
Yep.
for a day or 2 days a week, and they can sign up for classes individually. We're just one of the providers. There might be a drama company there and math teachers. And so they'll offer classes specifically for people who are homeschooling to give those resources. So parents aren't in it on their own.
Yeah.
And so some will come for just one class or many, some will drop off, or some will stay. So most of them have an area for parents to stay. And that way parents also build their own community while their children are
Wow.
at the same time.
So what type of classes, like I know looking at your website, but most people who are listening probably haven't seen your website, but I noticed you guys do a lot of STEM type
Yes.
programs.
Yeah, our Include Education, our focus is primarily on STEM programs. So we do things like robotics, video game design, hands-on science and engineering, digital art, 3D printing, those types of things. So, even some Minecraft coding classes.
Wow.
So, we're focused more on that area, but we partner with other providers, like I said, that provide art classes, drama classes, doing your core classes, your writing and your math and those types of things, language arts. So that way they can get a full experience depending on what it is they're looking for. And so that students can follow their interests.
So in reality, I could homeschool my kids, but not really sit home and homeschool them. I could just find stuff like your program. Okay, you're going to do the science stuff. Then I could probably do a martial arts school, whatever, for types art for my FIED type stuff. I just bring my kids around and then get the full
Absolutely.
edge. That's
So
really cool.
yeah, because the myth is always that you when you don't know about homeschooling, you're sitting there thinking it's just mom sitting there at the dining room table frustrated with her kids because she's trying to do it all on her own. And she's about pulling her hair out until her head looks like ours, and
Yep.
she's pulled out all her hair out. She's bald now. And that the kids are kept at home. They never socialize. It's like a cave and they just stay in there and they never see the light of day and they're all pale, socially awkward. None of that is, I mean, it's not true. I mean, there's exceptions to everything, but as a general rule, that none of that is true. It's the exact opposite. There's so many resources, and finding something like even using math as an example, you might not be strong at teaching math. Well, that's okay. There's teachers that want to teach math specifically. They're passionate about it. They're going to have more fun with it, which means your child is going to have more fun learning math, and let them teach it the way your child will learn in an environment that is a fun environment. They look forward to going to learn math from their math teacher.
Yeah.
And it's not every day sitting at a desk, like a good little soldier, or, I could use harsher terms, but
Yeah.
where they sit and they're just sitting in one spot all day and expected that they're just supposed to sit there and, have their hands on their desk or just working quietly when they're not maturity and developmentally, they're just not there.
Yeah. Homeschool has really taken off the past couple of years. I think since COVID happened, it kind of gave it like the jump start. Like there was a number that came out recently in the Mankato area where I'm from. The Mankato public school systems has lost now 25% of their market share for students. That means our students in our community are going elsewheres. And I know the homeschool community is huge. Like a lot of churches, like you just said, has their own homeschool pods. And I just saw another guy, he's opening up kind of like a center, kind of like what you do in this town. I'm not sure what his topic or what his focus will be at, but it's like, man, this past couple of years, they've really been exploding.
The traditional public school has just been has really, and COVID did, I think, in a way it kind of pulled back the curtain, and we
Yep.
could see plain as day what we kind of all we knew already, but we just didn't think about or want to believe. But it pulled that veil back, and we saw what the wizard really looked like behind the curtain,
Yeah.
and it wasn't what we had always thought it was, or tried to believe it was. And once that happened, we saw just how far behind our kids already were. And then they were okay with them falling even further behind. Or my favorite was the parents, you can't watch, don't watch the Zoom, don't be in the room with your child. Why not? Why,
Yeah.
w- w- as an educator myself, there's never anything happening in my classrooms that a parent could not see
Yeah.
or hear or anything, because I'm not doing anything that they didn't sign their child up to be there for.
I've never heard that. I never heard that where a teacher would say, you parents cannot be allowed to
Yeah,
watch
there
the
were
Zoom.
there were some districts, I think it
It's
was,
a little
one
fishy.
district in San Diego that was sending out notices
Okay.
to parents to stop being in the room or and
I
listening
wonder
in on it, on
I
the
wonder
Zoom
if it
sessions with the
was
teachers.
try not to think the worst case scenario. Maybe it was because of student safety, keeping the kids who are in class protected. I don't know, but it makes you speculate. That's just kind of weird. Anyways, to kind of build into our topic of discussion here, how many families do you serve? Roughly, you don't need to give me an
Gosh,
exact number.
we probably have across, because we're in 3 different counties in Southern California,
Wow.
and they're big counties. Like, some of them are bigger than some states, but so in that area, we have over 1,000 students currently.
Wow.
But over the course of the last, 10 years, I mean, gosh, I would have to research that. I'm not sure. It's been
Yeah.
a lot. So we've been in front of quite a few students over those years. And that's, for me, it's like how many, we do programs I should say no to many
Yep.
times because they're just not financially feasible. And so
Yeah.
we operate the class at a loss, but it's hard to say no to, when you have children that are excited to be there and really wanna do it, and so we'll sometimes do it when we're below what our minimum is for the class, but, we just don't, who wants to disappoint them? But I look at it as, the more families and children that we can have a positive impact on, the better. So if we can have just because you never know, that one class, that one interaction with the right instructor in the right subject matter and environment could completely change their trajectory in how they view education.
Hmm.
They view schooling as a fun thing. They look forward to it. Or is it something that they dread and they're scared of, even in some
Yeah.
cases, and have anxiety towards?
Yeah. You're making me want to get my kids in homeschool now.
It's not for everyone, for
No,
certain, but
but if it's like, because my thought of homeschool, I know I'm getting off topic again here, but my thought of homeschool was like I sit at home, I do workbooks with my kids, and like, oh gosh, that sounds horrible. I don't want to do that. But if I can bring them places and have stuff being taught, that'll work as well. Out of the 1,000 families right now you currently serve, how many of those families come to you because their child was being bullied in school?
a lot. And I knew this was going to be a question on here, and so I did a little bit of research. I'll get to that in a second, but I get phone calls, gosh, all day. I end up answering every spam phone call too because I never know if it's a parent calling, so I end up answering all of them, even when I'm like, I just know this is spam.
Yeah.
We get, especially for parents if they have children with special needs, whether it's ADHD or if they're on the spectrum and they've had a problem with bullying, or it's none of those reasons. It's just it is what it is. They're getting bullied. One unfortunate situation spirals out of control, and so we do hear that a lot. Now I did some research on it, and I actually went to, this is from the NCES. Okay, so they did a study. So, and these are all probably approximates, right? But they said that the school environment, so like safety, bullying, that kind of stuff, was the 25% of people who went to homeschooling. That was their primary reason, but 80% of them, it was a heavily contributing reason.
Hmm.
So for 80% of people who are choosing to homeschool, that was a big factor in it, even if it wasn't the primary factor.
Yeah.
'Cause it is so, bullying is so damaging that I think sometimes it's easy just to kinda, well, for schools, but also even as parents and adults, to kinda sweep it under the rug a little bit, and it's, we're building character, you know? We're
I've
building
heard,
trauma.
that's
We're building
that's funny
trauma.
because I saw a Facebook post a while back, and this mom was saying, "Well, I believe a little bullying is okay. It builds character in kids." I was like, "What are you talking about?" So
No,
I think what they're getting confused with is conflict can build that character. Bullying is not going to build that character. I think people are getting confused with the two, but
right. Well, also, I think they can be confused with, like, playful teasing. That's good, in, good-spirited, it's not mean-spirited, like you're trying to really make someone feel awful, but, like, playful teasing and stuff, we do that with our friends, we do that with our siblings and stuff. Sometimes we can be mean with our siblings, but is that, if it's a playful teasing and stuff, it's like, okay, you gotta learn to laugh at yourself a little bit. That can be positive and stuff, but when it becomes to where, when someone starts feeling shamed over it or feeling down and wanting, or angry, well, that's when it should stop and it needs to pivot to something else.
yeah,
But I mean, you want resilient kids, so you can't shelter them from, like, some playful, a little bit of playful teasing, but it has to be, like, they have to learn how to accept that as playful teasing and be able to tell the difference.
yeah. You
And
also
then,
need a relationship with that
true,
person
right.
doing it as well. Otherwise, it doesn't really work out.
Exactly, that's
Yeah,
true too. Yeah, if it's just the random kid on the playground is now coming and saying these things, well, that's not playful. You don't know them. Like that, now that's mean. You feel humiliated in front of others and stuff. Now that's bullying. So I think that's what they're getting confused sometimes, is what, they're thinking of the playful stuff that can be character building, but
yeah.
once it gets to, like, well, physical or mean spirited, that's
Hmm.
something that would induce anxiety for someone being there in the situation.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes a problem.
A few episodes back, we talked to the lady who's a psychotherapist, and she'd researched the OLIS system. You heard of OLIS?
I have not. I haven't heard that one.
It's OW. I can't pronounce that. It reminds me of owls. OLIS system, but I know my local school system uses the OLIS system, and it's a big bully prevention part of the school is to help prevent bullying. And they also have what's called PIBIS. You heard of PIBIS? I
Maybe.
can't. It's another like positive behavior intervention, something specialty. I'm not quite under, don't quite know what. the full acronym meaning is, but it's PIBIS. I should know because I ran for school board like almost 2 years ago. And since I stopped running, I kind of left all that, kind of forgot all about it. Anyways, these schools, they spend money on these programs. And I was telling the psychotherapist, well, maybe the oldest system could work if the schools will actually use the tools that they are given, because it seems like on paper, if you looked at that system, yeah, this is pretty good stuff. But why is it not working? So it's starting to makes you
You can
wonder.
have
It's like,
the best system in the world, but if it's not being implemented
yeah,
properly, what does it matter? That's so yeah.
yeah. Um, do you think it's easier for schools not to address bullying and just let the parents complain and move on
Yes,
rather than
I do. That's so I believe so. So I think a lot of it comes from if a school is presented with a bullying situation, it's easy for them to want to just well, and I should preface this by saying I don't believe this is like I don't want it to sound like I believe this is intentional, right?
correct?
So I don't think that it's an intentional thing from the schools. I think it comes down to ease, right? So if they are having, for one, you got paperwork, right? So
Yeah,
anytime you have the paperwork thing, that it's going to blow up, right? So if you once you have stuff that's documented, now it's going to grow. So they're going to take the path of least resistance, right? So if we can just, we could call it a conflict rather than bullying, because now it puts both kids in there, right? And now we can mediate it. And that's the kind of like the way they think of it is like, okay, if we are just mediating it, we can have both sides agree and stuff. But the problem with that is it's not a both sides thing. It's not a
yeah,
conflict. There's an imbalance of power, right? So it's not a
yeah,
disagreement. This is a bully situation, which means now you have potential parent meetings and maybe even litigation. So instead it becomes, well, essentially you're gaslighting the victim in here and
yeah,
convincing them they're part of the problem, which is in itself a form of bullying, but I don't think it's intentional. It's fear of lawsuits. They've got to, if you're going to call it bullying, well, now you have to um, set a standard of proof for it, which can
hmm,
be difficult sometimes. You can know something and not be able to prove it or document it. And so there you go. Or you also have the loudest voice. Who's the louder voice in this? Is it the bully's parents or the victim's parents? In many cases, it's the bully's parents.
yeah,
They're the loudest ones. And one could argue the bully is learning some of that behavior maybe from home. Well, if the parents are a little bit of a bully, they're going to bully the school a little bit. So there could be a lot of things like that, but even down to just protecting the reputation of the school. You
yeah,
know, while we can't, if we admit we have these things going on, wow, that makes us look really bad. Makes me as an administrator, as the principal,
yeah.
I look bad. Like, oh, I couldn't control my campus, and so they, it's easier to want to
Yeah.
cover it
Our
up.
school our school in Mankato has a policy. This is actually a legit policy where if you go onto a Facebook group saying our school district is allowing this to happen, they will get that post taken down. You're not allowed to say that.
Right, and that's see, and that to me, it's covering it up. It's like, well, no, we
Mhm.
need to parents do need to know about these things when they're happening. So it's unfortunate that they would want to cover that up instead of addressing it. To me, that's an opportunity, because myself running Include Education, and I actually do run some of the campuses that we do at with other providers, but I handle all the back end admin for it. When we have a situation like that, that's an opportunity for me to demonstrate that we truly do have a zero tolerance for that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
and maybe it's just the way schools are set up, but at least for me, I have it set up as I don't need proof because it's my program. And so if it comes to it, we're just going to make the decision. We're not a school. We're a learning center, which maybe that helps us in a way because it gives us more freedom to address those issues the way we feel we need to.
Yeah.
and we can hop on it right away. We don't have a second instance of a student being physical with another. No, it is
Yeah,
handled the first time. Like that is it. We're done. So now students can feel safe that because they know it is truly a zero tolerance policy. It's not going to potentially happen again. You don't have to be nervous about coming back because that student won't be there,
yeah.
you know? Just like in the workplace. I mean, geez, could you imagine getting someone hitting you at the workplace and then they're still going to be there on the job the next day?
Exactly.
Crazy. That would never
Does
happen.
right? It doesn't make sense. That's why none of the stuff with bullying in the schools makes sense. Why cover it up? Of course, I'm not inside the schools. I can't speculate on everything, but I hear stories. Parents reach out to me. They tell me things. My own students. I hear from my own students' parents. It's just like,
Yeah.
wow.
I think it's the wrong approach trying to cover it up. If we can all realize kids will be kids, right? So they're going to do things, but
Yep.
as long as we're demonstrating we do have consequences for that, well, okay, what else can we out? Then we can at least
Yeah.
look at it as, okay, well, at least the school is doing something about it. But when they
Yep.
cover it up, they're facilitating it. They're
Yeah. So
by de facto encouraging it to happen.
I've had multiple kids tell me at this one middle school in town here, all the fights, all the problems take place at the bathrooms. Okay. So we know this. Okay. So that should be easy fix for that school. It's like, okay, if the kids are telling you where the problem is, beef up staff during, get it doesn't have to be teachers, but get a janitor, get whatever between classes. You beef up the presence in that area to eliminate that issue. Now, obviously, a lot of bullying takes place where adults are not around, but you want to start protecting your school. It's like start listening to what's going on and
Well,
admit it, address it.
and I guess this is where I'm going to throw in a little bit of a criticism to some of the teachers out there too, because we can say it's the administration, but it goes to the teacher as well, because they do the same thing in the classroom level, right? But like that example right there, the teachers know where the problems are as well, right?
You
Why are you a teacher? Are you just there for that secure paycheck that you're going to get, where you work 9 months out of the year? And oh, no, this is my lunchtime. I'm going to sit here and I am just going to eat my lunch because it's my break. Or did you get in there because you wanted to have a positive influence on the lives of children and it was a passion of yours? You wanted to make a difference in their lives. Well, guess what? You're going to eat that sandwich over by the restrooms and you're going to keep an eye out on everybody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
What are we doing here? Like, what did you do this for? And I think it does demonstrate that there's been a big shift. I think so many, and there's always exceptions. Of course, there's some fantastic teachers out there, and I know some of them, and I can tell stories about them. But I do think the larger feeling is that a lot of people are there, don't really like their jobs, don't want to be there, but they're not going to give up the steady paycheck as much as they claim they might complain
Hmm.
about the pay. Come on now,
Yeah.
for
I think that
any other
also,
salaried position that you would
yeah.
work 50, 60 hours a week for, they get paid pretty well for the level of education they had to get.
Yeah.
I did that same level too. Like I know how rigorous it was.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, it's like, come on, you need to be doing this. You do get paid pretty well for it. But on top of it, you should be doing it because you got into the for the right reasons.
Hmm.
I think many get into it too young, and so now they're stuck doing something they don't enjoy because well, they have no experience in the real world. So
Yeah.
where are they going to go? Whereas you have the people who are more experienced in life, and now they realize that's their passion, and now there's the hurdles for them to get in
Hmm.
it because they didn't start earlier. Maybe we need to reverse that a little bit,
Yeah.
because I know I would not be the teacher I am today, starting in my 40s, if I had done it in my 20s. I would not. I'd have been a horrible teacher. I would have been just like everybody else,
Yeah.
because that's the age I was. Oh, I
Yep.
didn't have the maturity level, the life experience to go along with it, and I think that's what a lot of our teachers suffer from. And then if you
Yeah.
only grow up in that system, you just don't have life perspective.
Yeah, and I like to think all teachers when they get into that career, they're full of ambition. They want to do the best, and sometimes so it does fall back on the administration because they just make their jobs miserable. It could happen
True.
as well. You know,
That is true. I think
that's just
they
like with
do.
any job out there, like any, not just school, just like wherever you work at. it's coming from the management that's making you miserable and don't care. At least that's my experience working in the world of having jobs because I don't work for anybody anymore.
Right. But see, and here's the difference too, though. In all your other jobs, you could just go and be, okay, this was not working out for me. I'm going to go to another company, right?
Yeah.
If you're a teacher and you've been there for 2 years, you've got tenure now. You're not leaving. You're
Yeah.
going to stay, and you're just going to conform to the system to create the path of least resistance, so you're not having that conflict in your own life. And what's the best way to do that? Okay, I'm just here to do a job. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe because you feel like you can't care because now y- you're you're just frustrated because what you want to do you can't do, so you kind of have to let it go. So I do think it's systemic. I think and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not to put all the blame on them, but at the same time, maybe you do need that conflict. Let's do it. Is if you being that push and being that conflict in the school, if that's in the best interest of the kids, isn't that what you started doing it for? Like,
Good point.
I guess, but no one wants to lose their job either. So
Exactly. So going back to your business here, when a parent contacts you and they tell you, we want to go to homeschool, we want to go to the homeschool option. Is there anything you like? Any questions you ask them first? Like, why do you want to go to homeschool to make sure it's the right fit for them? Like, what's kind of like your, I don't know,
well,
spiel to get
so
someone to consider
yeah,
you?
so I will. That is usually my first question is, especially if they're just starting out, they're just making the switch or exploring it. What was the trigger for this? What was, what's the reason? Was there a specific event that happened that was the catalyst for making the jump? Because a lot of parents, they'll agonize over it. They'll feel like they really should be doing it for a while before finally there's that straw that broke the camel's back that gave them that push to make that final step into actually doing it. So sometimes finding out what that is helpful. And then, but then afterwards, explaining to them that most of the time what they're explaining, it's no longer going to be an issue anymore because now it's going to be a better environment that they have more say over. And depending on what it was that had triggered it, will kind of help determine what advice I give them as far as the direction to go in or how slow to go. Because sometimes if they've had extreme bullying, and I've had people call where their child has just been bullied to the point of like tears on Sunday night because they know they're going to be going to school Monday
Yeah.
morning, and like they're physically ill over having to go, and feeling that way. And so it's gotten to that point where they're just afraid now. They might need to take baby steps at first.
Yeah.
And I let them know it's okay to take the focus off of the academics for a little while. That'll come. Like you can catch up on that. Like when you're homeschooling, catching up on that stuff, incredibly easy. So like say, maybe let that go a little bit and let's focus on I know it's going to sound corny, but the healing part of it where you
Yeah.
actually get them into situations where they can start feeling safe again. Because if they can't, like, that feeling of safety in something, that's going to be the foundation upon which everything else is built. So you can try doing everything else, but if they don't feel safe, it's like building on swampland. You start
Yeah.
sinking in. Getting them to feel safe again. When they feel safe, they'll start feeling confident. They'll start being more social. And once they get that back, now you can start focusing on the academics. They've built the base of friends and stuff that is varied, amongst a wide variety of different children, different mentors, and you find out which ones work better. You're not just in a classroom with a teacher. No, you got this teacher, you got Mr. James over here, you got Miss Jen over here. Miss Reshma is this amazing art teacher, and they love her. And they go in the classroom. The first thing they do, and they come up and they give her a hug because they're so excited. And they go to Mr. James, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" They get to go and they get the big fist bump, and they're so excited to be there. And Mr. James, you can believe what I did this weekend. Once they start getting that, now they can start, you can start adding the rigor of some academics in there and stuff because they're
Yeah.
going to find the people that work. But there's also going to be some instructors they don't gel with. I'm sure there's students out there that didn't
Yeah.
quite gel personality wise with me. Not to say they had an unpleasant experience, but maybe I wasn't their favorite instructor. As much as I want to believe I'm everybody's favorite teacher, is probably not the case. And that's okay too. They'll find someone that does fit with them and allow them to grow and succeed and stuff. That's what we would do with any job in the future. We're not going to stay in a job where we aren't jiving with our boss or coworkers. No, we're going to go somewhere else. Who wants to be in a daily situation where they're not happy?
Exactly. And I love how you guys bring back that bullied kid's confidence back. You don't sit there and force the academics right away because if a kid's not going to be able to study if they're full of cortisol anyways, that's not going to happen. You just, you have to get them calmed down. You got to give them some dopamine with those options you got, especially at Include Education and with like the STEM stuff. They can work by themselves for a little bit, slowly grow into some peers and build their confidence backs up
Yeah.
stuff that traditional
Yeah.
public schools can't do.
Right. I mean, I have a student, and obviously not going to mention names for privacy, but on the spectrum, and one of the things in our classes, we're sometimes something will happen is like, okay, we're moving on to this next step or something, and he's so nervous. He's like, Mr. James, am I in trouble? No, dude, you're not in trouble. We're just moving on to the next step. You're okay.
Yeah,
Like, you're we're just moving on. Okay. And I feel so bad. Like, I'm like, gosh, he needs that. Even just me saying, hey, all right, guys, we're moving on to the next step, and maybe he didn't hear. Oh, hey, bud, you got to, click on this here. We're moving on to the next step. Oh, am I in trouble? Like, no, just that anxiety that he has that
yeah,
she's in trouble over something that simple. Where did that come from?
exactly.
And stuff. And so it's like, no, you're not in trouble. No, we're just moving on. No big deal and stuff. And treat it like it's not like, no big deal. Come on. We're moving on.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
but they're
And stuff.
shocked.
And so, but you can see sometimes that trauma or someone, and I can usually tell when someone's new, even if they haven't spoken to me, I can tell when a student sometimes is new to homeschooling because they're the ones that are in there. And it's like they're expecting someone. You could tell like they're sitting there, they're expecting to be left out or to be bullied or some remark to be made, and to see over the course of just a few weeks that now they're completely different. They come in, they're confident, and it's like that's
Wow.
awesome. And
Well,
some kids will
so
struggle with it longer than others, but
so you're seeing the change in just a matter of a few weeks.
sometimes, yes. So
Wow.
not all the time. Sometimes
Yeah.
it'll, I mean, it obviously depends on the level of trauma that they've experienced
Yeah.
in the a traditional school environment, how long it went on. But I mean, you look at it this way, even a student who had a positive experience all the way up through 4th grade, for example, and it was great. And then you have one, and I'm gonna use this as an example because I just saw in a dad's group on Facebook, someone bringing this up, a situation where someone goes and pantsed his son in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And that can be so traumatizing to have that happen. And like all level of trust could go right out the window right then. And that right there can ruin, those previous 4 years
Hmm.
don't matter. It's all down to that one traumatic experience now.
Wow.
And this completely changed the whole outlook on schooling. I don't want to go to school. I can't, that like that happened. Everybody saw it, and it was just treated like it was just fun, but it wasn't
Wow.
fun for me. Type of, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, seeing that as something that could be now, obviously, you want to teach your child that when those things happen, just laugh it off. Yes, we're going to face consequences later, but in the moment, try to laugh it off so that you don't show the embarrassment. Like, we could teach them those skills, of course, because that'll help them, but we still need to address the underlying problem of someone thought it was okay to go and pants another child in front of a large group of people,
Yeah. No kidding.
and stuff. That was just an example that was kind of off the top of my head, but some of those it could be a very singular incident of something happening that now completely changed their whole mindset on
Yeah.
school. And
Yeah.
so those will probably be easier to overcome because it's a new
Yep.
environment and so on as well. But yeah, because sometimes a new environment is all you need because you got to reinvent yourself a little bit
Yeah.
in that case, which can be powerful too.
Yep. When you get a student that's coming from, being bullied at school, and now you have to try to build his confidence up again. How do you start introducing him to new people?
Well, for me, it's actually pretty easy. I have amazing students, so
Yeah,
that certainly helps. And a lot of what we do is, a lot of what I do is team based. We're partnering up, we're doing things, we switch it up all the time. A new student coming into my class is going to be made to feel like part of the group right away by the other students. I don't
okay.
have to do much. Now, I might know which students in particular are going to be extra welcoming and stuff. So I might, intentionally pair them with or group them with those students in particular for the first time. But the students are so good at bringing people in. And what I love about it too is actually kind of awe-inspiring when I really sit and look at it, when I take a moment to, wow, look at these guys. When we get like a robotics class, for example, and I've got eighth graders and fourth graders, and they don't care. It's not like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm out with the younger. They don't care. Everybody's in it. They're still collaborating. And, a new student comes in and like, hey, you guys are going to partner up. Hey, can you help catch this guy up, a little bit, kind of show him what we're doing? Yeah, I can show him. And he's in there. Hey, look, they like, they grasp on. Oh, I get a leadership role here and I get to show somebody and they just jump right into it. And
yeah.
it's really cool. They do a lot of the work for me, honestly, but it's a different environment, homeschooling.
Um, when I first opened up my martial arts school called Kale Karate, I had like my very like 6 months into running my business, I had this 12-year-old come to my school, and she was bullied to the point where she can't be around anybody because she didn't trust anybody. She was scared of people. So when she first met me, she ran away. It's like she just took off running. So I had to put her with a 12-year-old. I had to put her with a 5 and 6-year-old kids. And then sometimes in that class, she would just run away because she's scared. And I remember, the student, which I've talked about the student many times. Her name was Lexi, and she's now an adult now. She's now an adult. This was many years ago. She's in college as an adult now. But it took like 6 months, almost 6 months to a year to get her to the point where she was confident. I couldn't remember how long it took her to get out of the 5, 6-year-old class. I think she had to build trust with me and how I would handle working with her. I mean, I still to this day don't know what it took because it was like 10 years ago. I worked with this lady. I remember that I had to bring her all the way back to the 5-year-old class, just where she felt safe, the little tiny kids, and work her way back up to her normal class. And fast forward, she got her black belt, and I still know she struggled with some confidence issues because when it came to certain things, she still wouldn't do it. But which I was okay with because where she came from day one to where she is as a black belt, like that's major improvements. So, but every kid's different. I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, it was
Some of your stuff
they're
that you had to do when you get some of those like those really kids who just shut down, like how do you get to throw them back with peers again? Like,
sometimes it can be hard. I would say that probably the most extreme case that I had was a student that had, which fresh out of COVID as well, being isolated on top of it. So and I don't know if it's specifically bullying on this one, but just had that really severe social anxiety, being with anybody else, away from mom even. And so mom had brought him in and into the class and had, this was a Lego engineering class. And so we partner him up, but I saw that his head just down, like he was not going to look up at all. And so, okay, I don't know if I actually even saw his face. I think I just saw the back of his head because he had his head down. But it was having him involved by having our assistant in the class sit with him and be his partner and talk to him, even though he was giving nothing back. And then at the end of the class, I'm thinking, well, I mean, we did our best, you know, but it was difficult when he's not giving any interaction. But to find out later that it was his favorite class. Like he was telling his mom about all the things they did in the
yeah,
class. And by the end of the semester, he did start participating. His head would come up and he would see it was baby steps before his mom. She was just like, Oh my gosh, a world of difference in the way he would light up. Once he got in the car, he would just light up with everything, you know. I'd like to think that, well, did that maybe set him off on a trajectory that now, that was a couple of years ago now, but is he now in classes where that anxiety level is so low that he's actually participating in the class with everybody? I'd love to think so.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a couple of years. Uh, those types of things I think, are huge. But even just the ones where they're in there, I could tell they're anxious and they were a little nervous, picking the right partner. And then, I'm always with all of the students. I'm going around and like, oh, I see what you did there. That's awesome. Pointing out what they're doing. And like, oh, you know what? On this one here, keep in mind this, if it's something I see they're going to have a problem with, and let them get to the solution by
Yeah.
kind of pointing out maybe there might be something they need to adjust here. And then oh, we did it. So they discovered it. And then at the end of class, like he's getting ready to leave. And it's like, dude, you did amazing today. I can't wait to see you next week. You know, and and now the big smile, or even just the shy little upturn of let's just the
Yep.
little the little smile, the little
Little
grin that you got
smirk.
walking out. Yeah, just that little bit, which then by the end of the semester is like full participation. See you next week, Mr. James, and stuff. And so they evolve and they getting that confidence back. Like it's awesome to see that the journey that they take from when they first start out to where they are later on.
Yeah, you're making me want to become a homeschool parent, Mr. James, because it's like you guys can do things so differently than what a state-run public education system can do because they're run by people who haven't been in school for like maybe 50, 60 years and making laws up and things as they go. And you guys can actually take these kids with no confidence and you can turn them around and they get a better education out of it, which is insane.
Well,
It's
they
like,
generally do. Well, it's so to that fact. So I was, and I didn't know if we'd get to it, but I did do. So I did a little bit of research in here just to get so I would have actually like my research here that I did. So homeschooling now is the stigma around it is going away. So even at the college level, so universities are now actively seeking out homeschoolers because they perform better. Now, you might have as they go, because homeschoolers don't always put the emphasis, especially early on the academic side as heavily. It's more creating educational experiences and
yep,
learning through play and learning through those experiences. The academics will come, but once they get to that high school level, I won't say most, a good many of the high schoolers in homeschooling, they're taking their classes at the junior college.
wow,
Actually take so there's a good number of homeschoolers that are actually graduating high school with that associate's degree, which is even easier than if you were trying to do it going to traditional high school. Because it's still possible with some high schools, they'll work with the junior college, but with homeschooling, no, you can go and take all your classes at the junior college. So many of them are like, we don't do a lot of high school programs because they're going over to the junior college for it. So usually I'm up through eighth grade. Typically, we do a few high school things here or there, but
yep,
most of them, they're taking the classes over at the college because now they're working on associate's degree and even working towards credit for their bachelor's degree later on. There's been a couple cases locally I've heard of where they're actually getting they got their bachelor's degree at 18. Like, I'm like,
that's insane.
what? Because they
Crazy.
can, and stuff. Universities are actually seeking them out. And so some of the reasons I was like, so why is it? Right. And they said it's because of their academic maturities, like on here. So they have the self regulation, right? They're used to, by the time they're in high school, they're used to having responsibility over their own learning, right? That's part of homeschooling. They're used to it. So they're better at managing their schedules. They are not waiting for a bell to tell them when to start, right? Because if
Yep,
they don't need someone standing over them, they do it. They're used to doing it at home. So they do it, right? They've got that internal motivation, right? To do it. So because homeschool students are constantly seeking out new experiences and new learning opportunities. College is just another one of them, so they do that. They're homeschoolers often This says earn higher first year and 4-year cumulative GPAs. So the GPAs are higher. Their standardized testing is 15 to 30% higher on like SAT and ACT than the public school peers.
Wow.
So you could take individual grades like a fourth grade level, homeschoolers versus public schoolers, and you could say on some things they're not testing you. Well, what's the test designed for? For what the public school was teaching them,
Yep.
not what they need to know necessarily. Well, they didn't learn it in that order. They're just learning in a different order. It does not mean that by the time they're in high school that they're not going to be above everybody else. So you can't use the same earmarks for some of that stuff. They also have a better, easily better extracurricular depth. Like they've done all sorts of
Yeah.
extracurriculars because that's what they do. They don't have to choose between a drama class or the robotics club. No, they do both. They do both, and they
Yep.
take horseback riding, and they take fencing, and martial arts and stuff. They can do all of those things. They have also that, and like I said, the social. So they have intellectual independence, is what it says here. So they have like an entrepreneurial spirit about them, even if they're never going to be a business owner.
Yep.
They they have that mindset. They're going to be the leaders, not just in college, but beyond in the workplace and stuff too. And that was where was it? I did yeah, right here. I was looking up for later on, like after college, workplace autonomy. They don't
Yep.
need a boss standing over them to make sure they're doing their job. They also aren't working the hours. They understand the value of get your work done so you have more free time
Yep.
because they're not stuck in school for 7, 8 hours, regardless of how quickly they work. Let me give you some more busy work. Well, you learn to work slowly because you don't want the busy work. So here, now homeschooling, you get your work done, you got your work done. You move on. So they learn that. They tend to volunteer more as adults. They feel like they have a stake in what they're doing. So, if they're working for a company, they feel like they have a stake in the company. They want a stake in the company. Who doesn't want an employee like that, someone on their team, right? Who feels like they have a
Exactly.
stake in it. And socialization. That's the other thing too. We hear about the generation wars, right? Gen X versus the boomers versus
Yep.
all these things. Why? Is because everybody, if you think about it, if you were in public school, you went to school with the same 30 kids, the exact same age as you every step of the way. You were in classes every step of the way, everybody the same. It
Yep.
doesn't work the same way with homeschoolers. They are learning right alongside younger children, older children, adults even the whole step of the way. The homeschooling is a family experience. You're going somewhere to learn. The parents are learning too. I'm constantly learning along with my students, and stuff. When I do things with my daughters, I'm learning right alongside them, through these experiences and stuff. So they're used to going. They can go to a workplace where they are working with senior citizens and younger people all at the same time because they're not viewing them as different because they're older. Like, no, we're all people here, and they know how to
Yeah.
communicate with those because of that varied social experience that they had. So it was just like, I was just kind of looking at that. Their emotional intelligences, out there, they're able to think outside the box, problem solving. So there's so many advantages to it. And I know we're straying away from what brought people there, which
Yep.
is bullying. But I think a lot of people will stay in a bullying situation longer because they're afraid of putting their children at a disadvantage by pulling them out.
Yeah.
It's just not the case. You have so many more opportunities with it.
I think a lot of it though too is the time. It's
That
like
it
both
doesn't work for
parents
everybody.
work,
For
both parents
certain, it
work.
does not work for everybody.
Yeah.
Time is certainly a factor. Yes.
Yeah. So in your places, you can drop your kids off, but not all day. It's for a few hours and they leave. So you would have to have somebody that could, yeah. But
Yeah, it's definitely more conducive. More, easier for families where you have only one working parent, so one parent's staying home, or a flexible work situation where they're working remotely. Because we have some parents, some moms that'll be out there in the, in the hall where everybody's at, and they've got their laptop up and they're working there. while their kids are in class, but they can walk away at any time and
Yeah.
interact and stuff.
But
There are situations, of course, where it is harder and may not be feasible for everybody, which is understandable. And then you've
but
got to do your best.
I think parents are making it feasible because the homeschools rate has jumped up so
Yes.
much in the past 5, 6 years.
Well, I think
Like,
too, they've started to
they're
realize
finding
so
ways.
many, and there's so many resources available now too. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were scared because like, oh my gosh, how do I do it? Uh, and that's one of my favorite ones too, because I love, when people will sit there and say, oh, well, how can I teach my child third grade math? And I'm thinking, okay, do you know how to cook? Yeah. Okay. Did your mom teach you? Yeah. Can you teach your child how to cook? Yeah. Okay. So if we're going to apply that to math, why are you going to send your child to the same institution that left you feeling so inept that you could not now translate that same information to your child? Like if they weren't able to do it for
Yeah.
you, why are you going to send your child there then?
Yep.
So when people use that argument, it's like, well, no, of course you can. And the things you don't know, you'll learn. You're a human being too, and you can learn, learn right aside them. And they'll learn it even better. You'll learn some new stuff and as well. So I think with the resources being out there now too, to fill in the gaps where parents don't feel confident, to have that sense of community. Like you'll never find like such a welcoming community as a group of homeschoolers.
Yeah.
You're there at a homeschool co-op or something, and now, like I always tell parents, I said, your kids are going to make friends, but you're going to make friends too. You're going to make friends. You're going to build your tribe, your community in there. And now you're sharing resources and getting together and finding out about new things and stuff and programs out there. And it's very different than what people imagine it to be if they
Yeah.
haven't, if they,
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you one more final question, and it's not meant to put the blame on anybody. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but it is a question that we need to think about and maybe think to ourselves like, okay, maybe there are some issues we need to resolve. But in your opinion, when a kid is being bullied, who fails the child first? The school, the parents, or the administration? The school should be like the teachers, I guess. That didn't really make sense.
so in the end, it's so the failure, as with anything, I think in any type of organization, it's always got to, you've always got to look at it as a top down situation, right? So it's always going to start at the top because that's where the culture starts, right? If you have a culture that allows these things and allows, I mean, it may not be the right word, but in effect, they're allowing, like they're not actively saying, oh, we're going to allow bullying. But if in effect that's what's happening, then that's what's happening. So you have, you've got to put it up to the top, where the school, then like, so the administration, and then yes, it's going to come to the teachers after that. And, because the teachers are the first line of defense in the
Yep.
classroom. And so they set the classroom culture as well. And then, yes, I do think at some point, then you have the parents. And I'm not even talking about just the parents of the bully. You have the parents of the victim too, because at some point, you've got to advocate for your child. And if
Yep.
you're not, then you are also becoming part of that problem. Now, it doesn't
Well,
mean pulling your kid out of school,
yeah.
but it means you can't just let it go. You can't ignore it when your child's feeling ill the night before because they're that anxiety of going to school. Well, you should be finding out why, you know.
Yep.
And I know I get it's hard, and stuff, but we have to start taking responsibility as parents. Like, okay, we need to go find out what's going on and stuff. Fail and sometimes in that, but I think we've got to be better at it and going in and saying, no, this is not okay. I'm not going to stand for it because your child needs to see you do that. Because if
Yep.
you don't believe in them, why should they believe in themselves?
Good
So
point.
I do think the parents then, but
Yeah.
I do think it's a top down thing. So organizationally starts with the administration,
Yeah.
then goes to the teachers, but then you have the parents, and then you do have the kids. I mean, the kids themselves. There has to
Yep.
be some accountability to a degree there as well.
Exactly. And when parents advocate for their kids, Now, parents, you have to do it the correct way. You can't just call a teacher up and cuss at them, yell at them, because sometimes you're getting a person who doesn't know what the heck's going on. You have to do it as if you were like, if you're going to confront somebody at work, like, how would you talk to this person in person? You got to be nice to them. You can't be rude.
You can't
You
be
have to treat
abusive
them.
yourself.
Yes, because otherwise they're not going to take you seriously, and they're going to be like, "Oh gosh, this person's crazy too." I mean, I think a lot of parents, I should say a lot of parents, I think some parents get that, which I don't blame them at the same time. But if you want to get this resolved, you got to talk to people with respect. Even if that teacher is the cause of it, you're not going to get anywhere as yelling at them. You got to show them respect. I know, which it can be tough, especially when it's your own kid. I had a
I
few
think
times with my
yeah,
own kid, I
that
had to talk to
absolutely, especially
teachers.
when it's your own child, that makes it hard, yes.
It's tough,
Objectivity goes out the window sometimes.
but that's the right way to advocate. Just be pleasant. If they be rude to you, well, document that. You have more to go after them with.
Well, and the biggest thing you can do at this point, and I know that the teachers unions, and I have my opinions on those as well. They fight against it. Everybody, whether you believe in the public school system or not, the traditional public school, and that's where your children are. I encourage everyone still support school choice initiatives because you never know when you're the next one that needs to have that choice for your child and you want it to be there. The highest accountability is with competition. And
Yeah,
so that's one thing every parent should want is competition in the education space because we shouldn't be trying to make the traditional public school the only choice. They should be trying to make it the best choice. And it's never going to happen if it is the only choice. There's no
yeah,
incentive to do better, and they don't. And that's why we see failing in so many levels. Once there's competition and they start losing more and more and more, including the union losing union teachers, what are they going to do? All of a sudden, they will start advocating for the things that are in the best interest of the students and the families, and even more so the teachers, because I don't believe they advocate for the teachers truly, but they'll
yeah,
start doing that in a way that will have a positive impact because now it's affecting their bottom. Because
yeah,
the union is going to represent things insofar as it benefits the union itself. Well, hurt the union in the pocketbook by making them lose union teachers, all of a sudden they'll shift. They will, and they'll stop putting as much money behind political candidates, and instead they'll start putting those union dues, those dollars, into things that make the school a better environment at
yeah.
the
I
school
think
level.
that's where a lot of schools are dropping the ball. They think everybody wants to be a part of the political world, and like for me, I don't want my kids a part of that political world. My kids in kindergarten, first grade, and preschool, yeah, they need education. They don't need the school doesn't need to tell them who they should vote for or go protest.
Absolutely.
They don't need that. My kids just need an education, and we're gonna look for the best. And my town wonders why 25% of the population is going elsewhere. And not to say anything bad about our public school system, because our public school system that we have an awesome being when it comes to like ADHD, autism, early childhood learning, like my school district is probably the best at it, which is really good.
That's
But it's
awesome.
a shame that after they get out of those early years of school, it drops. Like the service drops. It's like, now that we got you, who cares? It's like, wait, where's the same level of service we got when my kid was in preschool? Where's the same level of service when they're in kindergarten? Now that they're in middle school, like what happened? It's,
Well, you
you know,
probably end up with a lot of the more in those early years. That's where you have the new teachers, the ones that do, we're excited, and stuff. They lose it later on. And then it becomes, again, it's part of that culture from top
yeah,
down. Everything's politicized when you have a union that's supposed to be representing teachers pushing a political thing. You're politicizing schooling. Just there, teachers looking at their students as their friends and confidants in some cases, and that should never be the case
yeah,
and sharing their own political views to make a point. I teach. It's a newer class I just started teaching in the last year, and I've been having so much fun with it. Is a like a criminology class, and we cover a little bit of
fun.
forensics, crime scene investigation, and stuff. It's largely discussion based, but we do start talking about rights and stuff like what's a right versus what's a privilege. And I'm very careful when I do it to leave my politics out of it. I'm not saying if I agree with a law or not, that's political.
Yep.
I can say, I we have these laws, keep these laws in mind without saying whether I agree with a law or not, because then that is getting political. Now, when the kids will bring it up, I'll let them discuss it to a limited degree, but once it starts getting too political, we move on because I don't even want them necessarily that's not what the class is about. So, now if it was a
Yeah.
politics class that someone specifically signed up for, that'd be a little bit different, I suppose. Even then, as the instructor, my political views are out of it. That's for the kids to do. Bring up talking points, bring up both
Yeah.
sides, and then let them discuss in that situation. But for mine, I can bring up laws and I can bring up, the importance of jury duty and, because being on the jury does influence laws. You set case precedent for things and
Yeah.
you want to be part of that process without telling them which way they should be, going on it, and stuff. So there's ways of teaching without giving your political views. My my students don't need to know that my personal life. Now, will I talk about my daughters sometimes, fun things I do with my daughters? Sure,
Yeah.
kind of fun discussion as kids are coming into class, that type of thing, or relating something I learned with them. Sure, but my students have no idea my marital status. You
Yeah.
know, they don't need to know that I'm divorced. That's none of their business. They don't, they would never know if I was in a relationship with somebody. No, like that's not their business.
Yeah.
There needs to be a professional separation. And I think they
Yeah.
lose that sometimes. And
Yeah.
I think
I think,
unfortunately seems seemingly encouraged in some cases
yeah.
with some districts and administrations.
But at the end of the day, it gives businesses like you a place to succeed because
That's
thanks
true.
to the school
Yes.
district, you're making a living.
If they were doing their job, yeah, I would be teaching with them. Include
Yeah.
education wouldn't exist because there wouldn't be a need for it.
Yeah.
But that's why I say competition is a good thing. If that's what gets them there, that's better. And I'm gonna be honest, even as a business owner and stuff, you know, I would make more money teaching in that classroom for the school district, but that's not what I'm here for. I would definitely make more money earning that salary that they complain about, right? Then and I'd work a whole lot less hours on top of it too. But I wouldn't feel like I was doing what my calling is. And my calling is to have that kind of positive impact. And I think I would be handcuffed and not allowed to do it at this point. But I mean, gosh, imagine a world where that would be the place to go and teach and where you can make that difference. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what we tell people in the
Yeah.
movies
Yeah.
and TV.
But at least we have places like yours to go to. And if people, not everyone in my podcast, actually, I shouldn't say not everybody, majority of the people listening to this podcast lives out where you live. And only a small percentage of people from my own state listen to my podcast. It's California, the Los Angeles area listen to my podcast, and Australia. And then third is UK. Those are the top
Wow.
areas I listen to my podcast. Nobody in my state gives a damn about me. Just saying as a joke, but like why is my podcast popular out in the LA area? But that's where everyone listens at. So, but if people
Well,
want to get a
hopefully
hold,
it'll spread. Hopefully that'll spread.
that's the goal. But if people want to get a hold of you, learn more about Include Education, how can they do that?
So it's just include education. Yeah, I always say it's only in the middle. There's only one E. So if you think include education, but they share the E as one word, so include education. Go to our website includeeducation.com. But you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. You can follow us there, and you'll be able to see kind of check out our programs and stuff. We are just in Southern California right now. So Riverside County is where we're based out of. So the bulk of our stuff is there. But we do have programs in San Diego County and in Orange County as well. But for someone who just wants to do even a single day workshop, we do travel. Everything we do is mobile. So we go to you. So if someone's in LA County and wants to do, let's do a workshop. We do stuff with scouts as well. So we can do that. We can do all sorts of stuff. And hey, I love a good birthday party. So do
There you
birthday
go.
party. We do a robot war. Those are always fun too.
And if I'm a parent that doesn't live nowhere near you, like say from Minnesota, what do I go and Google or type up to find programs like yours? Like what would I search?
I would actually suggest going on Facebook is actually probably your best resource, and just search up in your local area homeschool groups and start joining those and reaching
Okay.
out to the parents in there. They will help you. They will help you with resources. They're a very welcoming community. So in whatever city you're in or the surrounding cities or your county, start doing those searches for Facebook groups, because once you get into those, you can ask questions and they're going to load you up with different resources and stuff. And if you ask, you can even say, hey, would anybody be willing to hop on a phone call with me and answer questions? You will have some homeschool moms and that'll be like, sure, absolutely. And they'll be happy to hop on the phone and explain what's happening and the resources in your specific area. And the next thing you know, you just made a new friend, and now you're going out for a play date where everybody's getting together, or a park day, or you've been invited to a homeschool co-op and come and hang out with them for the day. And next thing you know, you just found your new community.
Awesome.
I think Facebook is still probably the best and
Okay.
easiest way to find that.
Great. Well, Mr. James, I want to thank you again for coming on my podcast and sharing us the knowledge of homeschool.
Thank you for having
And
me.
you got me sold. Now I just have to do it. All right.
If you do, I don't think you'll regret it.
I think so. All right. Thank you, Mr. James. Have a good day.
You too.
All right.